Hey, ladies and gents, this is Wiz coming to you from El Paso, Texas, where I am interviewing a toy legend by the name of Joe Amaro. So here we are in his toy room, or corner of his toy room, and he's going to talk a little bit about his career and some of the things that he's done that I'm sure a lot of toy fans, and especially Masters of the Universe fans, will be familiar with. Now, Joe, the first time I knew about your work was when I was at Comic-Con, and the Four Horsemen were setting up their booth, and they pulled something out of a box, and it was this battle ram here.
Battle ram.
And I was never a huge Masters of the Universe guy, but I snapped some photos of it. Yeah, they showed it to me. I snapped some photos of the top, the bottom, and I posted them up on the Four Horsemen's forum, and people just went nuts. I mean, I had never gotten so many hits on my photo bucket account, but all of a sudden thousands and thousands of people were checking out that photo, were going nuts for it, were sharing it at other sites, because I had unknowingly been the first person to actually photograph the prototype of this vehicle, and folks were really, really excited about it. I talked to the Four Horsemen, and they said, yeah, Joe Amaro did that. And I said, Joe Amaro works with you guys? And she's like, yeah, he works with us. He did that. So I think that I'd like to hear you talk about some of the stuff that you've done, especially for Masters, that a lot of people don't know about, because you've kind of kept it quiet, and you've been humble about some of your accomplishments. So why don't you start us out with Battle Ram, the first vehicle in the line, and talk about that a little bit, and then show us some of the other things that you've worked on.
Sure. I think it was about 2005, 2006 that for years I've been trying to work with the Four Horsemen. I think I've submitted stuff to them since 2001. Just different ideas, different concepts, customs that I did, sculpts and whatever, and just hoping that one day we could work on something together. And finally, around 2005, 2006, they were like, yeah, we need your help on something, and it was the Battle Ram. We were kind of wanted it. Well, first it started with doing some other vehicles, but then we were thinking, hey, let's try to pitch a vehicle for Masters, and we wanted to do the Battle Ram. So let me show you some of this was kind of the concept that I came up with. Can you see it? For the Battle Ram, and it's just kind of showing you the size, how it would change. Here's kind of the dimensions, and one of the things that I did that the original Battle Ram didn't have was I made the back wheel really big. I decided if it's going to be a Battle Ram, it should look like a muscle car.
Right.
And so that's kind of the direction that we went in. And the guideline was always we wanted to follow what the box art did.
Right.
That was the biggest influence for all the vehicles. We wanted the vehicles that were in the box art, those are the vehicles we want to make. Right.
And one of the things that made you so valuable, I think, to the Four Horsemen was your expertise with digital sculpting and digital work, right?
It's one of the first times that the guys messed with. They've done 3D before, but where we really took it on and did something completely in 3D. And most of the stuff that I did for them was in 3D, but they always go back and we add clay to it. Once it's cast, they'll add clay to it and fix it and tweak it and stuff like that. So it's never the final. And still, that's how they're doing it now with the stuff that Eric's sculpting. It's done in 3D, but he still goes back with it in hand and adds in details and takes it up to the next level.
Right. And then originally with the Battle Ram, you didn't know whether that was going to get picked up or be a success or any of that, right?
Yeah, it was just kind of a pitch. Mattel was kind of thinking about it. The Horsemen really wanted it. All the fans, we all really wanted it. So we decided to try it out, and we did it. They showed it to Mattel. Mattel loved it, and they allowed them to show it at their booth. And just to see what fan reaction was, and of course fan reaction was great. So
yeah, I mean, they went crazy for it. They went crazy for my little digital photographs of that thing, even though they weren't the highest quality or anything. But it just gave me a real sense of how much people liked it and how enthusiastic they were. And then you know, the line just took off and we got more vehicles and you got to work on more vehicles. And this is another one.
The next one we did was the Wind Raider.
This
was really cool.
That is an awesome one. I have that in my collection, hanging from the ceiling.
One of the things we wanted to add that I always loved from the G.I. Joe vehicles when I was a kid was that the panels opened up, and so you could see.
Yeah.
All the.
That adds a whole, you know, extra element of playability to it.
Yeah, and so usually what I'll do is at this point, was mainly me and Eric. I would just do a concept or a design, submit it to him, and then he'd go yes or no, and then I'd start working in 3D, and then they would just revise the sculpt as we went along until eventually we got to a point where we could, you know, usually when I turned in the sculpt, like for the Battle Ram, you can see it. This is what it looks like.
Right.
It's just great. But even this one is not final because you'll see, like, if you look at my missile compared to the missile that the Horsemen added, they really beefed it up. They added the back detail.
Right.
A stand for the figures. Then we beefed up these little exhausts and stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that they go back and tweak and do by hand once I turn it in, and we just go back and forth on it.
Right. And one of the other vehicles that you got a chance to work on is right behind you, right?
Yeah, the Talon Fighter.
Why don't you turn that bad boy around so you can take a look at it? Did you guys ever think you were going to make a Talon Fighter?
No way. The Battle Ram was going to be a big pitch, and I just never thought we'd get this far and to go in to do, for sure, Castle Grayskull and stuff like that. I never thought that we'd get to do something like this. So this one, Nate was really involved in.
You're talking about Nate Baertsch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I worked with him a lot on the design, the concept. It was kind of his vision on how it should look and how it should work. And then, you know, Eric's always involved in everything, and then we go back and forth, and then we'll start working on the 3D, and then there's tons of revisions and tons of revisions.
Right, and I was amazed by the amount of detail there is on that.
Yeah, we try to
all the bells and whistles and fun stuff.
We tried to sculpt everything that is on, in the decals, it's on here, so like this thing.
Right.
And all these... And these
were actually the control panels.
They became later in production. They became stickers.
Right.
I don't know why, but they were sculpted at one point. I think it's just because when they're tooling it, they need to be able to pull it out of the mold.
Right.
And they would have to make this a separate piece. It's easier just to do a sticker.
Yeah, and those figures, the way they sit in there and the way they fit, it's really seamless.
Yeah, one of the things that I try to do a lot with the vehicles is one of my pet peeves with vehicles, because I love vehicles, is when figures don't fit in them properly. It just it loses the whole point of the vehicle. So with Masters, one of the challenges we had was that they don't really sit. They kind of do this like weird Pilates pose type of thing.
Right, so, their feet sort of splay outward, and they're hunched.
Yeah, you can see He-Man.
They work out too much, I think, is the problem.
Yeah, they're just so built. He can't sit. Poor guy, but. So I had to try to design the vehicles around that so you could make a Masters figure sit. And then when we talked about doing the Talon Fighter, we wanted 2 figures to fit in here. So in order to do that, I have to make it so it's not, even though it came with Tila and she's so thin, it's really the Masters figures that this was designed for, some of the warriors. So, I mean, Tila's a warrior.
Well, you wanted the big muscle-bound guys to be able to fit in there, too.
And guys with armor had to be able to fit in it, because it just sucks when you get a vehicle and only certain figures fit in it. I kind of wanted most figures to fit in it. So, we have here one of the Royal Guards. I want him to be able to fit in there. Yeah. So you need to take him into battle, and even with all his armor and everything, he still fits. And that's why it's so big.
Very cool. Yeah, you knocked that one out of the park. And you got also sort of a hybrid vehicle sort of animal that you also worked on as well, right?
Yeah,
the Stridor.
Night Stalker.
Night Stalker.
Well, we did both. We did Stridor, and we did Night Stalker at the same time, because it was just Stridor has his helmet, and then this panel comes off, and it's his shield. So we did, when we turned in Night Stalker, we also turned in Stridor, so hopefully we get it.
Right, and one of the neat things about that is the neck.
Yeah, that's one of the things that the original toy was so static, and it bothered me because I really wanted him to move. So for sure we wanted it to move. And when I worked a lot with Nate on this, because Nate's a big horse guy, he loves horses. I think he's into horses, and
Yeah.
he, I don't know if he just knows a lot about them. So we worked on the anatomy, and one of the things that we talked about was that we already had horses. We already had Shira's horse and Bo's horse. So since we had Swiftwind, we already had a horse. We wanted to make Stridor a mechanical horse. And since he's mechanical, he's more of a war horse. It's really more of a vehicle, and that's why he's so big.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you put a guy in there, they don't really sit; they stand.
Right. Yeah, so that's a very cool sort of a hybrid robotic vehicle. But then you also worked on these guys too, right?
Yeah, I actually
the hoverbots.
Yeah, besides all the vehicles, I actually got to sculpt one of the figures, which was the hover robots.
And you did that digitally as well?
Yeah, this was digitally. This was pretty easy because we had a lot of reference from the Filmation cartoon, and that's kind of what we wanted to go. And so I already had made one for myself, so I showed it to the guys, and I was like, hey, look, I kind of have this already made when it comes time. And they're like, yeah, we'll just, we can tweak it. And so they tweaked it a lot. We changed some of the design and made it more, so it fits more with the line. And, they went in and fixed stuff on it too, but...
All right. And I see behind you there's a, what is that? The Snake Mountain?